And long and behold, it's been like a month since I got knocked out of the E7 World Cup, and I still had not done an account review yet. So I was like kind of pushing it back, but I guess this is like a, it's not like I hide my stats at this point anyways.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine. You know, like it's no big deal.
Kenny, I'm sweating just looking at the stats. Dude, every single piece, 3 to 4 to 5 rolls in speed and awesome subs, man. This is insane. Definitely the best Luluca. And I love the combination with the newly buffed Black Hand to make up the crit chance, dude.
Yeah, that is a 80 gear score, fully DPS weapon, by the way. It's...
Oh my! Exclusive content for y'all right here. Kenny,
yeah.
first question. They're asking what the table's about. Is this the team or is this some favorite units?
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't
Maybe
know.
friendship or something. All right, so Kenny, I think today, I don't know if you heard it earlier, we won't focus fully on the account review. Let's just take a quick look so that both my guys and then YouTube can get to see like what kind of stuff you're rocking, get to know you a little bit better, and then we jump straight over to, I think today I want to focus on RTA because normally, right guys, we focus on helping new players, but I still have a lot of RTA players in here, so we want to take our game to the next level, Kenny. I think you're the right guy to ask about that.
Yeah, I think like one of the common misconceptions is that someone who's in the later game of RTA can't really give advice to people that are newer into the mix of things. If, you know, this season the Riolet skin really stands out, hey, I want to, you know, I used to play League of Legends a lot. I really like the character Fizz. So if I want a Fizz skin for my Riolet, this is the perfect opportunity to push for the next season, you know?
Amen,
So,
brother.
yeah, just a little background on if people haven't watched me stream before. I stream at twitch.tv/E11, ECTRIK. I started streaming and playing RTA back in Season 2 preseason, and I kind of worked my way up in terms of climbing the ladder. I ended Legend on the first season that I pushed, and then, you know, Season 3, I also ended Legend. I qualified for the E7 World Cup, and now I'm primarily just a, you know, I stream whenever I can because I'm pretty busy when it comes to my workload, but I do try to play RTA whenever it's possible. And I mean, people usually say that I'm a above average player in terms of the way that I draft.
Of
My
course.
my gear is okay. If you want to hop into RTA, I think a lot of people would be like, wow, this player is like not too bad. You know, you can peak the win rate. I think a lot of people care a lot about win rate, but when I stream, I always emphasize that win rate is not important in terms of where most people's goals align. So it's okay, you know, like, but if people do care about win rate, you know, you can see that. And then I do have that to reflect, I think, you know, a portion of like how well I can draft and play the game.
I love it, man. So, what would you, for RTA, you mentioned, right? Your gear is pretty good, but it's not something you would say you're like mega known for. I would say you're most known for like your, game analysis, right? You always think through every single play. You always analyze and talk through all your plays as well. Would you say that's your biggest strength?
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because like, so a little more about like my personal background. I have a background in finance, so I really enjoy like, you know, things that involve a little more strategy, right? That's what I do for like a living. And you know, I played a lot of TFT before this, things like that, and you know, I played a little bit of chess when I was growing up. And these are all smaller things that, you know, I kind of look into in terms of applying my like knowledge to something like RTA. I think a lot of people complain about the way RTA is built in terms of like, you know, it's at the end of the day, there's a lot of RNG elements in this kind of game, but strategy does have a stronger presence when you're trying to be a more consistent player. And I think, you know, that's like one thing to do with mental, the other thing to do with just, you know, playing enough games to kind of realize what's good in each scenario.
I love it, man. All right. So, Kenny, you ready to start? We'll just go through the units, and then we'll swap over, and then we'll talk about my account real fast, what kind of units I have ready, and then you'll hopefully be able to get us some wins here. I'm going to try to Discord stream for you so that you can see it live, but my internet's kind of ass, so hopefully it won't lag.
Yeah, funny enough, right? So I talk about how I'm like a business major and stuff.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of presentations, right? And it's very funny because a lot of the times in order to improve your presenting skills, you kind of have to listen to yourself and like, you know, hear what you're saying, look at your body language and stuff like that. But I, for one, cannot stand the sound of my own voice. So right now I'm watching your stream completely muted. I'm watching your reactions. I'm looking at chat. But that audio is turned off. I cannot sound... I think I sound like a douchebag. I'm sorry, you can filter that out, but like... I cannot help it.
No, you're good, man. I think most people, welcome on in, boys. I think most people don't like the sound of their own voice. I don't mind it. The reason I mute my own stuff though is because when if I tell my girlfriend to you know, hit a like on the YouTube, I hate my like my YouTube intros and stuff, man.
Yeah, it's very funny. I think you have to like expose yourself to it, right? It's like the same way when like you see pictures of the side of your face, you're just not used to it, so it seems like really off-putting sometimes. But I think the more that you expose yourself to it, the better you get. But I just don't want to like expose myself to it because I can't help but cringe.
Kenny, real fast, let's just get out of the way. Can you comment right before we start on the whole? Oh, and guys, I said girlfriend. Baby, if you're watching, I apologize. I meant fiance. Kenny, what's the BK thing? I think I saw the clip, but for those that don't know, YouTube also might see a lot of people referring to you as BK. You want to explain it real fast before we start?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I just want to clarify that if you call me BK, one day when I get mod status on Car's channel, you're banned. All right. I'm gonna make that clear right now. Oh, you guys are all banned. Any BKs, I'm writing your name down. You are banned.
Uh-oh.
All right. But the story behind BK was that, you know, I was in middle school, right? And I was playing like a lot of Call of Duty at the time on Xbox. And I remember this very distinctly, all right? I was playing on the map Afghan, and we're playing Search and Destroy. And I had an M4A1, right, with one-man army. And obviously, if you're running an M4A1 in Search and Destroy, you have to run the noob tube, right? Because you're gonna kill people and spawn. So the background here is that, you know, me and my friend, we finished school for the day, and then we hopped on the Xbox, and then we were like playing Search and Destroy. And I was like noob tubing people and spawn. And then my friend just all of a sudden says, Kenny, you're such a BK. I'm like, what is a BK? Burger King? And he's like, no, you're such a bad kid. And I was like, oh, I see. So yeah, that's the story behind BK. It's not Burger King.
Dude. All right, Kenny, if we get me some dubs today, I'm gonna call every opponent we crush a BK, right? Because if they lose to me, they're definitely BKs. All right, man. I'm ready. I'm excited. So we can just look through every unit, right? We'll just breeze through them real fast. If you want to comment, what I usually do on the reviews is I'll just show every piece of gear, and then we'll just focus on the ones that you actually really invested in. Skip the PvE ones, etc. Okay.
Yeah. So a little bit more insight on how I build my units in terms of like strategy and stuff like that. So I play a good amount of games, and maybe it'd be best now to just transition to the RTA screen if people want to see like, you know, my battle log and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that will make more sense in showing the units. A lot of my units, I spent extra time thinking about how they kind of synergize and work with each other. So to me, that is the best way to know what will work for you and how to, you know, build things, you know, for yourself. I think a lot of people that end up playing RTA decide to copy a generic build, but don't really think about the reasoning behind why certain things work. And, you know, the only way to really do that in a game like this is, first of all, I think one of the things that I would comment now, just in terms of RTA, is that you put your title as Sweaty RTA. I, for one, would say that that is not a good way to approach the game. I think the best way to approach the game is to, you know, first of all, forget about your win rate. I think a lot of the times it's important to realize that you know what to pick in most spots because you're willing to play the games. So if you look at my win rate and say like, wow, you know, this guy is so high up every single season with an amazing win rate and not that many games played, he must be a great player. But that is not true. The best players are the people with 2,000 to 3,000 games played with 50% win rate because they're willing to test out and see what works in the most amount of scenarios. This is not a very high skill stealing game, and the skill floor is very low. So it's really, really important, right, for the average player to understand that, like, you shouldn't look at this as a sweaty game. It's okay to lose games. You know, I think one of the examples I said a lot on my own stream is like, first of all, Car, congratulations on your engagement. But let's say we get to the point where I'm invited to Car's wedding, and he asks me to say some valuable words. You know, the thing if I say something like, hey, you know, when I first met Car, he was a great guy. But then I saw that his season 4 win rate was 50%. He just kept losing games over and over again. Bruh. Honestly, like, this guy is just so bad at RTA. Let's just go to the next bar and celebrate something else instead.
Bro, not in front of my...
No one's gonna say that, right? Like, it's okay to lose.
You're definitely not, because I'm not inviting you anymore. But no, I get... Kenny, totally get the point. Sweaty was more because I stream in a closet and it's just hot and I'm always sweat. No, I'm kidding. I love that mentality though, man. But Kenny, easier said than done when you got a crazy win rate. You know what I'm saying? You're
Well,
preaching you can get 50%, but you got a god tier win rate. So, but I get
with the
that.
way that the system kind of works, right, is that you can climb with a very low win rate
Yeah,
relative to that, right?
true.
If you can climb with a 50% win rate, and there's people that you can never beat, that's okay, because if you beat the average player, then you will net points, right?
Mhm.
And that's what's important to kind of understand when you're kind of building your units together. And I think that's something that, as like a fellow streamer, right? When we give advice on how to build something, it's always going to be very generic because we want, that unit to work in the most amount of scenarios because people are
Exactly.
wasting their resources on it, right?
Yep.
But it depends, right? And this is the reason why I don't do account reviews, is because one, I think that each account is very, it's on a case-to-case basis, right? What works for me might not work for the next person. What my answer is to a cleave counter might not be the answer to cleave counter for you because you might not have that same pool, right? And that is, I think, is the fundamental in terms of like is the fundamental foundation to have a successful like time playing RTA. And I think a lot of people kind of like forget about that and just focus on, what is the best stat that I can post and make a streamer like gasp. You know what I mean? Like that is not the proper mentality to have. And you'll see this when you go through my account, where some of the units might be questionable and people will say it's not the best build. But if you look at the way that I play and the way that I have these units purposed for, they are, what I consider as, as good as they can get for that specific niche. And
Got
that's
it.
the only difference.
All right, Kenny. Love it, man. Great. So one last world champion legendary season since you started playing competitively.
Since I started playing on the side, I guess competitively.
All right,
season
boys.
2 I ended legend, season 3 I ended legend, and both those seasons that I played, I ended in top 15, so on the legend ladder.
All right, Kenny. Let's take a look, man. So let's start with the Arbiter Vildred. Okay, so yeah, we're not mega fast, but we got crazy high attack and crit damage. I've noticed a lot of players opting instead of 250 speed, they're dropping like 230 and then getting just as much damage as possible. Same mentality on your end?
Yeah, I think the question you kind of ask yourself is, what do I really outspeed at that 250 threshold, right? We think about a lot of the units in the current meta right now in that 230 to 240 range. There's not really that much, there's not that many units, right? Sometimes now, like, the ends are a lot faster. If you're 250 speed, it's still a coin flip, right? You'll still outspeed the larger majority of units that you play against. And I think that 230 speed, if you're contesting first turn, is always important. I think something else to realize is that almost all of my units will have immunity.
Yes.
And I think immunity is very, very valuable. Because if you get the extra, gear score for running something with a more offensive stat, if you look at those premium stats, right? If you look at, someone like Jintae's RB, for example, right? Where you have 4,800 attack and 290 to 300 crit damage. If you don't gab, it's kind of negligible damage, right? Because the difference between my RB and Jintae's RB, for example, is probably less than 8% damage difference, right?
And Kenny, sorry to interrupt, but just so people know in chat, Jintae, who we've had reviewed and guest as a guest also, he's running crit set, I think, on his newest build. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think he showed it. He showed it to my Discord, but Kenny's saying it's like about 8% more stats for crit set over immunity. Anyways, sorry, Kenny, go ahead. Continue your thought process.
No, it's not 8% more stats. It's significantly more stats, but if you look at the damage at the end, it's probably equivalent to probably 8% damage.
8%.
Which I think, which I think it's something that you come from just playing is you realize that most of the time when you draft an RB and you don't proc your gap.
Yeah.
It's the damage is kind of negligible, right?
Sure.
So
okay.
That's my RB.
Love it.
He kind of works for speed.
Ken, if you don't mind, can you? We've always had a bunch of immunity versus non-immunity. I think a majority of players are still on the immunity almost always when you can. But lately, there's been a lot of I think namely Vinny, who is it? Not Sedge. Vinny and Nori. They kind of love running as many units as possible on crit, and the thought process is right. I guess not. I don't know about the current meta, but beforehand, a lot of units kind of stripped anyway. Strips and debuffs were huge, and so they were like, let me just maximize the damage, and the few times immunity would have been helpful, they just roll with it. But are you so strongly in the immunity camp that you firmly believe like it's the way to go no matter what?
Well, it depends. It's very meta dependent, right? And I'm always of the opinion that, to be honest, I think damage is kind of negligible in most cases if you don't proc things like Gab. So I'd rather win out the games where immunity does matter than win out some games where I don't draft enough damage, because that can be attributed to a draft issue, right? If you don't have enough damage, you probably could have changed your draft in most cases to justify saying that, you know, the crit set obviously gave a little more stats here, but if I just drafted differently, then I wouldn't have to worry about that, right?
Yeah.
Or be in a spot where, even if I didn't proc Gab, if I just drafted more damage, right? Because Gab only procs 40% of the time, then it kind of covers your bases, right? And a lot of the times when I evaluate how I build my units, it's all about coverage, right? And it's about what covers the most amount of units, so you can kind of prevent yourself from losing to these RNG scenarios. Sometimes you do lose to RNG, right? That's part of the game. But, so you can still do enough to kind of prevent yourself from losing to those high RNG swings, where if your draft can kind of carry out your entire comp, then you'll have your bases covered essentially.
I love it, man. All right, that sounds good. All right, so Kenny, the Kayron, and we have the Kayron skin. Some of my chat was commenting on this. Are you a big fan of this skin?
Yeah, I usually don't buy the Epic Pass skins,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of. So I stopped farming now, and this is just one of those things where I use Kayron quite a bit. I use him as a place where RB is pre-banned, and I need some sort of extra reach for things like Stenny or Landy.
Okay.
And I use this Kayron to kind of kill those units. You'll see that my Kayron has pretty good damage with very, very high speed.
Yeah, this is very fast.
Yeah, this is because I run very high speed units, and I need them to outspeed certain units in that threshold. Things that come into mind is like ML Haste, for example. If ML Haste moves before my Kayron and S3s, I lose values on my Elyas, for example, right? And these are like the smaller things that I kind of fine tune just from playing games here and there to kind of see what works for me.
Got it. Okay, so Kayron is a still very viable backup DPS unit when RB is, you said, pre-banned?
When RB is, yeah, when RB is banned or off the table, sometimes I will take the Kayron in that place.
Okay, I like it, man. I think a lot of people have their Kayrons like on a counter build or like much slower, right? Like you 180-ish, but you specifically aim for the 219. All right, sounds good.
Yes, I draft very aggressive, and you'll see this when you look at my Luluca and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
where...
Kenny, take the floor, man. I saw in your drafts, TML was in it, but she was also alongside like usually a Flurry, but then you also have like some tanks like Krau. So
yeah.
I'm interested to hear about this playstyle.
Yeah. So this Luluca actually does pretty insane damage. If you plug this into a damage calculator against a unit like Carrot, for example, this ML Luluca at 296 speed can one-shot Carrots with 1600 defense and 15k HP. 1600 defense and 15k HP if there's no extra mitigation, right? So now maybe we can backtrack a little bit here. All right. One of the things that people say is this is very premium gear. If you toss this gear on my A.Cidd, you will see that this is probably going to be the best A.Cidd on any server. It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
I have 100% crit chance with Black Hand of the Goddess. Black Hand of the Goddess gives crit chance and crit damage, so it really covers your bases. So this is a 300 crit damage ML Luluca.
Kenny, I'm sweating. I'm sweating just looking at the stats, dude. Every single piece, 3 to 4 to 5 rolls in speed and awesome subs, man. This is insane. Definitely the best Luluca, and I love the combination with the newly buffed Black Hand to make up the crit chance, dude.
Yeah, that is a 80 gear score, fully DPS weapon, by the way. It's pretty insane.
Oh my god.
So yeah, if you look at the way that I draft, maybe we can backtrack a little bit and go back to the RTA drafts. So on my stream, I like to play very aggro, and I like to play and think in a way that can kind of promote me to use this kind of unit. ML Luluca at this speed, for example, think about the things you outspeed, right? Bazaar, T-Time, Carrot, right? These strong first turn units that a lot of people have and they kind of depend on, this Luluca will kill them, right?
Yeah.
And so I want people to pick those units into me, right? So when I want people to pick those units into me, the important thing I have to ask myself is how can I get my Luluca to do the max amount of damage that's possible, right? And that's for me banning. So if you see a lot of the way that I draft on stream, I pre-ban the FCC, right? And I take away the blue Krau. And let's think about the knights that people can draft, right? Because a lot of the ways when I think about things is like, what do other people pick, right? Because you're playing against other people on the ladder. They have FCC, Krau as their knights, and maybe Trozet, right? But LQC is good into Trozet, right? So I'm not really worried about that. But if I take away the FCC and I take away the Krau, what do people usually take, right? They take things like Soul Weavers and extra damage, right?
Yeah.
You know, Stanny, double Soul Weaver, and things like that. But if you think about that, right, Emma Luluca would not have any sort of damage mitigation to deal with. You can just one-shot any unit for free, right? And that's like the value of this kind of unit. So
That is crazy, man. Definitely the most insane Luluca I think we've ever seen. Very cool, dude. Man, now I want Luluca. All right, but although guys, I can't get these stats. Why would I wanna? Why would I want
yeah,
to team?
so a lot of the times I think people ask me like what I think is the best Luluca build. I'm a huge fan of consistency, and the only reason why I have this kind of unit build is because I think it's funny. I think it always catches people off guard when, you know, I draft two or three, like two speed contests, like two pseudo speed contesters, right? My Emma Luluca, my Fluri, and they draft a full cleave team with speed imprint, right? And with the way that speed RNG works is that at that 300 speed variance is very high for one of these like really fast units to outspeed. So I'll play that RNG check because it's in my favor statistically, right? And I beat them with like, you know, they draft Cerise and like, you know, green Vildred or some speed imprint,
Sure.
and they get outsped by Flurry Emma Luluca. It's pretty funny to me, so that's why I have it. But if people do ask me what I think the best Emma Luluca is, if you're going to build her, 250 high damage immunity, like no questions asked.
250.
But I think this is, yeah, I think this one is just funny because it catches people off guard, and I think a lot of people come to my stream not only for like my analysis, but to see this Luluca kind of kill people. And I think it's a lot of fun. So
I love it. So Kenny, you mentioned that. Do you think with I mean, I apologize, dude, in advance, but this isn't gonna help. You know, showing this off. Do you think more people that know that you're gonna be near that 300 speed is gonna make her less valuable on this kind of setup?
No, not at all.
No,
I mean, like,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, I have. You'll notice that I have a lot of units built, and I change my gear around quite a bit.
Okay.
I think it's just like one of those things where, like, you know, even like, I don't want to sound like I'm like cocky or anything, but if like my only goals right now is to just end Legend RTA, it's not going to be very like difficult for me,
Whew.
and it doesn't really like.
Mom, man. Hey, if you got it, flaunt it. All right, Kenny, let's see the next unit. T.Surin.
T.Surin on a little scuffed build. I had to move around a lot of my lifesteal pieces, so this one is a little below average than what I usually like to run her at.
I see the 50.
But I mean, I don't draft her that much anymore, so it doesn't really matter. Like, she's just built in case I ever do draft her.
Perfect.
In the events where I do draft her, if I need extra reach for Stenny and I can't use Kayron or Arby, this is a good pseudo pick for me.
Can you just remind me of something good? So mentioning like T.Surin, you don't draft her a lot. Before we start the actual RTA games, let's have a quick talk on like what you think is the best units and the like I guess end of the season and then maybe a little bit moving into the next season. Units you think, because T.Surin, is that a personal preference sort of thing? You're using her less, or do you think she's just being pushed a little bit out of the meta?
I think she's a little hard to use right now. I think things like, you know, what I think popular picks right now, and again, it's dependent on what people draft, right? I think things like the G-Purg, you know, I think Zerato is getting a lot of popular again. Even Arby, I think, is still pretty good into T.Surin. A lot of these units that can kind of push her back, and like I think Bazaar is very common as well, especially with Bazaar G-Purg being a very popular combination of units to pick. I think push her value down a little bit.
Okay.
But I think she can still work. It's just a little harder to make her work consistently, right?
Yeah, sure. All right, Bryceria.
Yeah, so I run a faster damage Bryceria. I use her in spots where I know things like the Bazaar and Tea Time are off the table, and I need something to unbuffable something like Landy, or maybe get, you know, maybe hit a Riolet, for example. Then that's when I use her. And I think some people will say like, oh, if you're trying to hit Riolet, like, why don't you have Symbol of Unity? I think there's a lot of value in running Guiding Light because people can't really target her, and you can kind of cycle through your turns and really punish people for not, you know, having extra AoE reach to kill your Bryceria. So the reason behind that, a lot of my units are in that 230 range, so this is specifically tuned to go before my DPS units, right? That's why she's at that 235 speed range, and I need her to be that speed.
Okay,
Cermia. Cermia you can skip over. She's not really used.
Politis.
Yeah. I do use
Guys, maybe I am a furry lover.
If you look at her gear, it's actually pretty good. I actually have some pretty good gear on
Shark
her.
beta
And the way that I use Politis is that if I know someone was going to pick Trozet or Maid Chloe, and I can know that I can one-shot their team, then I'll draft this Politis as a extra counter to kind of deal with the Maid Chloe. When Maid Chloe revives, for example, the S2 procs on the Politis, and then you'll, you know, kill the team when they revive, right? So I just only molded her S3 or S2 and S3. And if you look through her gear, she actually has my old Model Luluca neck, which was my immunity like damage.
Ooh, okay, 20
Model
speed.
Luluca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
important would you say it is to have a Politis unit for drafting?
For drafting, I think she's a little fallen out of favor, but she does have some pretty good soft synergies to deal with things like RB and GP. So I think she's actually pretty good.
Mhm.
It's just you have to know the right time to pick her. And unfortunately, a lot of those times, in order to know when to pick her, you just have to play with her. And sometimes you'll tank your win rate, but that's okay, right? We talked about earlier how it's okay to tank your win rate, right?
Yes, try
As
to
long as
just.
you learn from it.
Okay.
So it's a case-to-case basis, really.
And Kenny, just for general purpose, would this be the kind of build you recommend?
Yeah. You want to stay around that 210 range, and then you also want some bulk. A lot of times people would choose to hold their S3, right, with their with their non-skill up move.
Yeah.
And so that means you don't get your S2 off, right? So you don't get your value, and they'll just kind of kill your Politis. So I tried running this very low HP, full damage Politis, but she just died. So this way I gave her a little more bulk, right? She still has really good damage, and then she can survive some random S1s here and there, for example.
Okay.
Let's say I draft Politis into Flurry, and Flurry has to S1 chunk down my Politis, right? It'll take a few S1s to kill her, right? So
Sure.
she's still alive.
Got it. Okay. Landy.
I'm a pretty tanky Landy.
Very tanky.
It's pretty average. Like,
Oh
I think
God,
this
if
is the
that's average. If that's
I think
average,
this is
I'm
the
slacking.
average. I think it's the average, speed tanky Landy.
Okay.
Nothing too crazy.
Chat, are your guys' Landy is your guys' Landy 1500 defense around 14, the lower 14k? I'm slacking. I thought the average was like 13, but this is, to me, is really nice. All right, Kenny. So for him, it's just a normal Landy build. It's a Landy. Looks good.
Yeah, she's pretty tanky. I like the defense.
I think she's a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit above. I would say above average bulk, but yeah, everything's on point. All right, Kenny.
So I run a very different Stenny. So a lot of the times I say this a lot, right?
Yeah.
You have to test things out yourself. So the way that I'm testing my Stenny is I want her at 13k HP to tank through things like Carrot ML Krau, and then I also want her on higher attack because a lot of the times I run things with attack buff on my team, and it's kind of very like some people would say this is very low crit damage. This Stenny sucks, right?
Yeah.
But
sure.
think about the things that you like run, right? Oh, that's my Make Chloe neck, by the way. I used to run this on my A Meru. The ring is pretty bad, but the neck is insane. This is a 76 gear score crit chance.
Jeez, and yeah, on the crit chance,
Like,
it's crazy.
Yeah, this is pretty
Very
sick.
nice.
So the reason behind this Stenny, right, is that I don't want to die to Carrot burns because Carrot's very popular, but I also want to be on enough speed and lifesteal to kind of survive through like any sort of chip damage that can kind of hit her, right? And then a lot of the times I do run attack buff, and with the way that this gear is allocated, I just can't fit more crit damage. I did an analysis on the crit. This sounds very nerdy, but I'm a finance guy, so
Sure.
I did an analysis on like balancing out your attack and crit damage.
Yeah.
And you always want to have like a very close 1-to-1 ratio between attack and crit damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the cases where my gear, like the way my gear is allocated and the way that I run my different units with attack buff and stuff like that, it kind of balances out here, and it's like perfectly okay. So the crit damage might seem low, but a lot of the times, especially when I take away knights, right? Keep that in mind. I don't need that much. It's
Okay. Fair enough. No, I agree. And the is there a reason I think a lot of people would shoot for like 1400 defense. You went for the health. Is it because of the carrot burns or?
Yeah, I think more things now are HP like just pure HP damage that ignore defense. So it's kind of like whatever. Keep in mind that this is a unit with high base defense, so it's easier to get the 1400 defense than to get the 13k HP.
Right. Yeah.
I lose out in terms of stat value for being at this threshold, but the reason behind this is that I want her to live more like scenarios with higher HP, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I take 3 burns on my Stenny, there's a good chance that I live, right? But if I'm at like 10k to 11k HP with 1500 defense, what good is that defense going to do, right? Pretty much nothing, right?
Interesting. Okay. So, yeah, and we're actually using 2 free pieces of the arena gear, and they rolled. Yeah. They rolled really nice.
What you notice with a lot of my gear is that I'm actually relatively. So I think people would consider my account very high-end legend, like very high-end, like in terms of the late game scaling. My spending is significantly lower than a lot of the other players that spent early on. Funny enough, I quit this game early on to play 7 Deadly Sins with my guild Ambition.
Yeah.
And I stopped, and that was about the time when Wyvern 11 was still out. So I quit the game for the longest time, right? I came back when Wyvern 13 came out. I still passively farmed and like played on the side. And when I came back when Wyvern 13 just got released, right? I had like 1600 leaves saved up. And
Jesus. Yeah, I forgot to
all
ask
of
you
those
about your
leaves,
origin story. Yeah, okay.
yeah, all of those leaves, right, went into Wyvern 13 instead of Wyvern 11. So that's why like my gear looks so crazy. But when
That,
you actually ask me like, so maybe
yeah,
you want to
yeah.
ask me how much I spent, right? So I definitely spent more than 10K.
Whoa!
About from the time between, I think when I stopped playing or started playing again in July of 2020 to now, my account value is about $14,000, like $14,600, something like that. It's a lot of money, right? But if you think about who I'm comparing to and the gear quality that I have,
Yeah.
this is like, you know, nowhere near as much as the other people, right?
Yeah,
And
we
you'll
just did
notice this a
Careless's
lot.
review. We've done
Yeah,
Gente,
and you'll
Platy.
notice this
Yeah, yeah.
you notice this a lot with when you look at my older units, right? Like my older unit imprints that were really, really popular. Blue Krau imprint, right? Like Carl's imprint. I don't have any of these imprints. I run it. My best Abyssal Crown is plus 24. I'm missing out on artifacts and units, right? A lot of the even now, like a lot of the new, like I've been spending quite a bit. I didn't pull for Ida. I didn't pull for Elena at all. And like this is where I allocate my money, like to just straight up gear. And you'll see that a lot of the times like I have really good gear, but you know the larger majority of spending at that higher range comes to units and imprints, right? And I just don't have those.
Sure, sure.
Most of my money is just all in gear. So
Yeah,
I
and
think
chat
that's
says
really
you're a finance guy anyway, so that's hey man.
yeah. I mean, if you want to know a little bit about my origin story, I mean, I don't mind to talk about
Sure,
it.
let's save that for a little bit. Maybe when we do
Yeah.
the questions. Kenny, have you clicked the skill enhance button? I think you have some molas to claim.
I
Do you
think I
want...
just friendship tender, so yeah, you can click that.
Oh baby! All right, Kenny, there you go. 3 more molas. Okay.
Very nice.
Up next, Riolet. Can you
Yes.
comment on Riolet fast? He's in a weird spot. A lot of people, you know, just
So
don't like him.
yeah, Riolet is a great unit, and the only reason why people flame Riolet is because they draft Riolet incorrectly. And I don't mean to downplay anyone that drafts
No,
Riolet.
Kenny, keep it real.
But
Tell them they're doing it wrong.
You have to draft Riolet in spots where you expect him to get hit and still survive. So a lot of I think there's 2 trains of thoughts here. Like some people draft Riolet into things like a random Arby, a random Bazaar, right? I don't draft Riolet ever in those scenarios. I draft him into things that where I expect him to get hit once or twice, you know, into 8 Taiwan and stuff. It's not going to kill him because he's so bulky, and you expect him to get hit, right?
Yeah.
But you want Riolet to be a 1v4 unit, right? People say like, oh, as long as my Riolet doesn't get hit, I'm gonna be fine, right?
Yeah.
So if you're expecting Riolet to get 1v4, you have to run him on Violet Talisman, right? Because that gives you scaling attack, which into Frenzy you do more and more damage, right? You have the 80% evasion as opposed to the 70% evasion, and he scales, right, to this, you know, kind of beast, right? And it's important to know, one, not only when to draft him, but also knowing how to build him. Some people say that I want to draft Riolet with immunity set. If you look at the pieces of gear that I have on my Riolet, this is a very tanky Riolet, right?
Yes.
If I put him on immunity, he would never get to this level of bulk. And like this is one of those cases where like he's so stat hungry for certain things that this is a pretty good chess piece, by the way. That like you just can't fit immunity, right? Because you just end up losing on some sort of stat, and it's just not worth the trade. Because 12% crit chance is a lot of stats, right?
Yeah, plus you have him triple S.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what so sometimes when people ask me like why I choose not to run immunity, right? Some people say Amaru, right? How many Amarus are realistically faster than Riolet on the first turn, right?
Not many.
So the immunity doesn't even matter, right? So just eliminate that and like off the top of your head. And what are the things that can kind of punish Riolet on the first turn? You know, things like Cerise, Basaria, Tea Time, right? Or even Tea Time, right? But you ask yourself, why are you drafting Riolet in those scenarios? There are better units to pick in those scenarios. So why'd you draft Riolet there? Was it because you didn't know what to pick, right? And that's a drafting thing, right? So it's one of those like weird spots where you really have to kind of think about where to draft this kind of unit to make sure that he works. Someone in chat here asked me why the higher defense. At this point, I'm expecting my Riolet to live, right? So if he's gonna dodge many things later on in the game, the higher defense scales a little bit better, right?
With
because
with R2 scale, sure. All right,
Yeah.
Kenny. Yeah. So this is TLDR, guys. If you want to run Riolet, bring him in the right situations where he's gonna get hit, right, Kenny? He's gonna get hit.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure and use him more as the 1v4, maybe like a Ravi kind of thing, where he's just gonna scale up and then he'll take over. But to do so, Kenny, this is some crazy stats, right? Both the triple S max imprint and then the, like you mentioned, what gear score is this chest piece, dude? This is crazy.
Yeah,
very high,
like
right?
74, I think.
74, okay.
Good.
Yeah, so bulk, and he likes the speed. No need for immunity, he says. So if y'all have this kind of gear, give it a try. You might be lacking some crit chance, but he maximized fully both the imprint plus the crit set. All right. Okay, Kenny, next up we got the A.Cidd.
Yeah, this A.Cidd's on filler gear.
Filler gear?
Yeah, it's just filler gear.
Did you mention the Tomoka took some of his gear? Is that what it
was? You can press the manage equipment here and just give him all my Tomoka gear.
Sure, let's do that.
And then you can see the kind of speed that I was running on my A.Cidd beforehand.
All right, let's take a quick look. Guys, chat guesses? What do we think he's going to reach? Y'all saw the Tomoka, right? Hold on, before I finish this. Chat, what do y'all think? What do you think the speed is going to be when I finish? Go ahead and answer now. YouTube, if you want as well. Guess live. All right, Kenny. 3 more pieces. Oh my god, dude. Oh wait, the boots are the same. Okay. Chat, y'all were under-guessing. Kenny, this is absolutely disgusting. So, did you used to run him?
No, you have to, you give her the attack ring. Give him the attack ring instead. And then give him the crit chance boost from Luluca.
Attack ring. Oh, yeah, sure. And then crit chance boost. I just want to see so the fastest we could get him if we went all speed is 321. And then you said which boots?
Just filter by speed. It's the same Luluca boots.
Same Luluca boots. Okay.
My old Luluca was just purely just my A.Cidd gear. And I was like, time to change things around because A.Cidd wasn't really good.
So this is the Cidd on actual like gear, not just fastest speed.
Yeah, with like high damage.
Chat was pretty close actually. If they were talking about,
yeah, I've already linked it. Like,
oh,
yeah,
okay,
I don't really
okay.
hide my stats on screen.
So they knew. Some of them knew.
Yeah, I think most people.
Damn, dude, this is very crazy. Now, Kenny, in terms of speed rolls, do you have any tips, or is it just getting lucky and farming as much as possible?
So people say I'm pretty lucky. I honestly think that I was born on this world to play Epic 7, so it's just player diff, right?
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
Just RNG on birth.
You just have to come to terms with it, right? But actually, no. So I actually didn't have greatest speed gear before. So I'm in the guild fleet, by the way. And I actually didn't actually have a lot of the premium speed gear until I started joining the guild. And it's nice to be in a competitive guild like that because you have a lot of people coming. It's like a think tank for RTA, right?
Sure, yeah.
I think it's very rare to see a lot of consistent legend players with over a 60% win rate and higher legend right? But Fleet has, 12 of them. They have 12 people well over the 62% win rate mark, all in legend RTA talking about RTA. And that kind of breeds this kind of knowledge of how to play the game, right? So what I did to roll speed was when I didn't have really good speed gear, I rolled any epic with speed twice, up to +6, and I rolled anything with 2 speed. Anything with 1 speed until I had enough offsets, with offset speed pieces, but anything with 2 speed heroic, I would roll with speed. I think it's easier to do now because of the crafting gold cost. What else are you going to really spend gold on at this point? Not much, right? And now that the crafting gold requirements are halved, it is almost always worth it to roll the 2 speed heroics. People in my Discord that are joined, constantly now during hunt buff, they post 4 or 5 pieces of 20 speed gear that they rolled because they followed this advice. It is RNG, right? Sometimes you might not be lucky, right? But the more that you roll, the higher chances you are giving yourself to get those speed pieces, right?
Yeah, chat's asking, heroic is purple, and Kenny, so just to recap, I think this is very good advice. Well, if you want to fish for speed, we're saying you said any epic with any speed at all, so any red piece of gear?
Any red piece with speed at all, you roll it twice. If it hits
roll
speed
twice.
Once, if it hits once, then you roll it again. So if it rolls 0, let's say it doesn't roll speed at +3, it rolls speed at +6, you roll it to +9.
Interesting. And then
then it depends on depends on what you have, right, in terms of your pool. And the reason why, it's because speed gear is valuable, not just in PvE content, but eventually your PvP content as well. You'll never have pieces of gear where you say I'm not gonna need 20 speed gear, 20 speed here. There'll always be certain units that you can kind of fill in these slots with more speed and still get a bang for your buck.
Okay, man. I like these. I like the extra tips. So we really just gotta fish for as much as possible, right, for the speed, because it is RNG, it is random, and the more chances we get. So any purple gear with at least 2 speed, we just give it a shot. And did you say how many rolls? At least 1 roll?
Just 1 roll.
One
If
roll.
it hits speed, you keep going. If it misses, you just bank it
Sure.
right, as a charm.
Okay.
It's one of those things where like
It'll depend
at
on
this
how much
point,
it hits.
so now that like gold is much more abundant with the crafting cost halves, it's really valuable to just roll these pieces, because not rolling these potential speed bangers is like something like
Yeah.
like think about it, right? Like Car's streaming right now on a Saturday. You come up into his chat and you'll be like, "Hey Car, check out this 25-piece speed gear that I rolled," and Car will be like, "Man, this guy. I wish I had that luck." And that's when Car starts, and then Car starts rolling his 2 speed gears. He's gonna show off to his chat, and it's gonna start this like train of everyone having speed, right? And it's just a good thing to have.
Love it. And Kenny, I hope you didn't miss any. Chat, today it's Sunday, right? You said I'm freaking out here, guys. Is it Saturday or Sunday? I don't know time, dude. Okay, Sunday. Perfect. All right. So Kenny, after the A.Cidd, do we skip the Kayron in the ice area?
Yeah, you can skip all these. You can go down to the Watcher Shuri. So I have a Watcher Shuri that's built a little bit faster at higher speed to kind of kill off tanks. It's a little weird to say, right?
Sure.
But I use this Watcher Shuri because I speed contest, right, with my units at like 296 and almost 300. Sometimes I know someone will be even faster than me, right? So I'll draft this Watcher Shuri as a unit, not only a unit that can probably one-shot some Krau, some Rioels, and finish them off. He's pretty premium gear too. But he's also speed imprint, right? So like it's not RNG at that point if someone I know is around that same speed threshold, because then I'll have a speed imprint on them.
Okay.
And they'll have to ban the speed imprint. Yeah.
And then the guiding light, nice touch just to make sure, right? He stays alive at least first turn.
Yeah. Some people like sachets, but with my speed unit, like speed contesters, I'm a Luluca Flurry. They have some sort of way to not only block some mitigation, but also provide CR boost for the rest of my units. So I wanted them to be a little bit faster and to be a little bit safer into some like units that can potentially cut me.
Beautiful. Kenny, I see something coming up next. This is the second Arby.
Yeah, so I was in the E7 World Cup, so I wanted to have 2 potential things for people to deal with.
Yeah.
And I wanted to build a fast Gab RB and then a fast counter RB as well.
Well, I showed the gear.
A very common question.
Yeah, thoughts on both builds?
A very common question that people ask me for these kind of tanky counter set RB is, do I run more boots with attack or boots with speed? And every single time I will always say that you run boots with speed, because a lot of the times when you draft this kind of tank RB, tank counter RB, right? I don't want to call him. I guess we call him degen RB now.
Yeah.
So is that a lot of times you're playing into very aggressive drafts, right? And a lot of the times what you'll notice is that people will ignore this kind of RB, right? So if you're base speed RB, yeah, you get higher damage on your initial S3, but you don't really take that many consecutive turns after the fact, especially if MLDB doesn't proc, right? If MLDB does not proc, and I'm sure everyone in chat can attest to this kind of bulky, tanky RB doesn't feel very bulky or tanky at all, right? And you're just kind of like, I'm kind of screwed, right? So think about the math behind taking. So essentially, a 170 speed RB will take 2 turns over a 110 speed RB, right, or a 120 speed RB. So the amount of damage that you get from attack set boots is not going to be more damage than a potential S3 and S1. So you're essentially doubling your damage, right? And having more threat against someone who's playing more aggressive than having just a tankier base set RB that, unfortunately, if he doesn't proc MLDB, he's probably going to die regardless, right?
Yeah, I like that thought process.
So that's something that I kind of tell people who come to my stream pretty frequently. And I think a large majority of people would agree with me. Again, it depends on what gear you have. If you don't have the speed boot RB, then don't like force yourself into it, right? But eventually, when you do get those boots, I do recommend switching it off.
Big brain. I love the thought process, man. Chat's asking Kenny. Well, I told him we'll do an AMA after you guys real fast, but HP percent boots, same thing, right? Same thought process. Yeah. I guess they're saying if instead of the damage, they're saying go for even bulkier stats. So big time on the bulk.
Again, I think it's a little indifferent, right?
Oh my!
Enough damage to threaten to kill people.
Yeah.
Right? I think like if you look at the S3 when you're running HP boots, no matter how much damage you can kind of fit on there, it's going to seem a little underwhelming. I think like especially when people draft like some knights into like an RB like that, right? Where you just end up doing like 2k damage with your S3 and it just feels pretty bad.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, next up, LQC. Is that what you're going to?
Yeah, I have my LQC built up. She's pretty good, I guess. This is
really nice, yeah. For a bomb build, the bulk is there. Actually, bulk is pretty good. Speed on point, crit chance enough with the Hellcutter, and then we even have a little bit more crit damage than some other full attack builds. Yeah, it looks great, man.
So I think a common question for LQC builds, you know, do I run Sigurds or do I run like a Hellcutter build? A lot of times when I draft LQC, I expect her to trade 1-for-1. It's very, very hard to get the stats to make her work on Sigurds. And I think something to preface off of this is like, when I give recommendations for builds, right? It's not that I'm saying that certain unit builds don't work. You know what I mean? Like, they will work. You will win games with them, right? If you run your HP boot RB and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But the thing is like, as a streamer and as, you know, someone who's telling people like a larger, like, you know, general population on how to build a unit, if they're wasting their resources and not everyone has the most amount of resources, I have to give you the most generic advice that I can give you that can apply to the most amount of people, right? So when I say things like, you know, don't run like I prefer you not to run HP boot RB, doesn't mean it's not going to work, right? You're still going to win games with it, but like in the larger context of games played, because some people only have one RB, right? Then you want them to work in the most amount of scenarios because you only have that one unit to rely on, right? So like that is the difference between like, you know, the general advice that I give and then like what kind of works for you. Again, it depends, but like, you know, as we like, you know, as a content creator, I just have to give the generic advice to the most applicable kind of build, right?
Yep, sure, true.
So pivoting off of that, common question: do I run Sigurds or do I run Hellcutter? A lot of the times when I run LQC, I use her as a unit to trade with someone, right? If she can kill a unit, she's done her job. She can die. Like I don't mean to be blunt about that, but like she's done her job. Usually, I'll be in a spot where I can win a 3v3, right?
Kenny,
so
does she die often? Does she die often with the stats?
Not really. Actually.
That's what I was thinking that too. Yeah. It's pretty bulky, and then with S2 mitigation.
I draft her in a way where it's like, you know, I usually have like Arius plus her passive, so it's a lot of extra bulk.
Sure.
And that usually kind of carries her to let her live. So I draft her for the initial S3, and then any like turns that she takes after that is just extra value.
Love it, man. Okay, Kenny, next up, Chamsy. And you mentioned earlier, Chamsy kind of coming into prominence again a little bit? Or more, picked a little more often?
I think I like drafting my Chamsy quite a bit into things like the Carrot.
Yeah, tell us about that. So Carrot, he's a popular pick versus Carrot?
Yeah, I think Carrot's pretty good. I think, in general, just Champion Zerato is pretty good in the current meta with, you know, popular picks right now.
And should we mention your build is not the free lifesteal kind of build most people just slap on, right? On their
so if you guys don't notice, or if you guys have noticed by now, I like going for speed gear because I like playing very aggressive. So I'm not gonna farm Banshee. So I just don't like, I have some lifesteal gear right on my Stenny, on my Violet, or my RV, but I just don't have enough. I don't have enough lifesteal gear for my CZ. So he's just on speed set, and this kind of CZ usually will work for me because I contest first turn. So I don't need lifesteal set, because when I contest first turn, I essentially eliminate one damage threat, right? I can stop an Emil Craft from getting an S3 off. I can stop a RB from getting an S3 off. I can stop a GP from getting an S3 off.
Yeah, that's huge.
It doesn't take as much damage, right? So to me, I don't really need lifesteal set, which is why it's okay to put him on speed set, right?
Okay. But guys, that is something to note. If you're trying to, you know, emulate some of these builds, remember we saw the Tomika earlier, and his I'm assuming the Fluri is also very fast. We'll get to that. The threat of him, you know, threatening the first turn is why he's able to have a lot of success with these kind of builds. So if you weren't, Kenny, if you weren't able to, you know, have that speed gear to contest first turn, do you think, like, what would you just guess your Chamsy would look a little more like? Lifesteal, maybe tankier or faster speed?
Probably similar stats. I'd probably drop his speed. I think speed is good on him, but it's definitely not needed. That's why I like having speed set on him. But I think anything with around this, you know, type of bulk, and then a good amount of damage as well to threaten to kill when you get your S2 off. And then I think lifesteal set is pretty ideal.
If we weren't able to go first, right, or threaten the first turn. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough, man. All right, Kenny, I'm excited for this next one, dude. I love this lady.
So AD Mara is a little. I took her neck away. I used to run my Stenny neck on her.
Yeah, the crit chance one.
I'm a huge proponent of running a crit chance AD Meru because I think it's enough damage in most scenarios to get value. I think a lot of times people just go that pure attack build.
Yep.
But crit chance effectively doubles your damage, right? And I think even in the spots where someone runs a very tanky team, the damage on her, like the damage on AD Meru on crit set is significant. It is significant because you're not running her into like 4 tanks. You're running her into Riolet and things like RB, right?
Sure.
And that's where she like adds the value. Can she use more bulk? I think is a common question that gets asked to me. She could, right? But again, it depends on the way that you play, right? I think for me, what the common question was is like, okay, obviously an 1800 defense 80 Marrow is pretty nice, right? Like no one's gonna argue that. But you have to ask yourself, after a certain amount of bulk, do I need that bulk, right? Do I need her to be 1800 HP with 1.8k defense, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes not, right? She's gonna live with her, with a knight plus some sort of, plus her passive.
Yeah, she's
And
deceptively tanky.
You're better off just going more damage, right? Like there's no point in getting more bulk and to cover that one-off scenario where the crit can give you more benefit against the average comp, right? And that again is something you have to like you kind of pick up as you play RTA, right? Like you see and you ask yourself like, oh, I really don't need more bulk here. I would have won this game if I had more damage, right? And
You adjust your builds as you go on, yeah. And
Yeah,
Kenny,
exactly.
I actually loved, I heard, I think Charfade sent me that link, and we were talking about it. I was like, you know what? I was originally, dude, I forced a mirror from the day she was out when everyone thought, she was not great. So I was testing a lot of different builds, and I just recently, I haven't been using her, but after watching that clip, I swapped mine to Chris Chance, so I'll show you later, and hopefully we can get some games in with her. Yeah, I'm excited to try it, man. I like the build.
Yeah, it is pretty hard to use her. I run her in some pretty weird scenarios because she has Ayala's violin and she's like deceptively tanky.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what I used to do.
we could probably fit her into a few games, but she is a little bit hard to drop.
Because of all the
don't drop
counter
her as
picks? Is that there's a lot
I
of things
think
that kind of
there's
hard counter?
Yes and no. I think partially it's like sometimes you just don't need her. Like
Oh, sure, there's
like,
just better picks.
There's just better picks. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Ken, let me just type to the chat real fast. Okay.
So,
All right,
so someone in chat. So I just want to
go ahead.
emphasize this. Someone in chat says that the tickler build is bad. That is not the case, right? Sometimes these units will work. They just won't work as often. That's all.
Are we saying the tickler build is that just the attack or just nothing, like just all bulk and speed?
I'm guessing it's just a high attack and then like just pure bulk and you just drop crit chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Ken, we got the
Fire
Ravi,
Ravi.
yeah.
So I don't really draft this unit anymore, so I strip her gear.
Yeah, is it
She's
because
also
of
pretty-
Carrot? I noticed a lot of people just aren't drafting her. I think it was when Carrot kind of came into play. She's not really.
No, it wasn't actually Carrot. The problem was actually Trozet.
Trozet.
So what became really popular was Trozet and Cerise, and these units can control Fire Ravi, right? Trozet can Sober an S1, guaranteed stun for the most part. Cerise can just effectively fully control Ravi, right? So it's just harder to use her now. So I took a lot of her gear. She's still unusable gear. I have very low defense relative to the average, I think, Fire Ravi in Legend now because I don't use her that much anymore.
Yeah.
But she has higher HP because in the spots where I want her to tank random chip damage, the higher HP is more valuable than defense, and I still want a good amount of attack.
Fair enough,
So
man.
that's all.
Yeah, I mean,
And again, I
Still
love
usable for
running
sure.
immunity set. Yeah, I still love running.
Oh, that's true. A lot of people on the Ravi will opt for crit chance on her, even if you love immunity, right? You still opt for crit chance because the thought process is, it's a Ravi. She has the spells, and then
yeah. So
she's slow anyways. Yeah.
I see someone ask me what EE. I run so.
Yeah, I was showing
The
you.
reason why I run the cleanse one is because I run on counter set. I think Fire Ravi is one of those units that synergizes very well with counter set. I think a lot of units are not good on counter set because I think it's negative impact for your team.
Counter players, where you at?
I think more often than not, you find yourself rather having the damage up front than just to have like an extra counter attack that procs here and there. But Fire Ravi is different because not only does she have an EE to cleanse herself, but she's also on Sigurd's Sight. So that gives you more coverage against a larger majority of games, right? And that also gives you an RNG element, right? Which is honestly going to be beneficial to you in the most part. Always play for your outs, and if RNG is an out, then you play for that out, right?
Love it. Okay. Next up, we got the twin A Ravi.
Oh yeah, so I run a very different A Ravi.
That was high crit damage.
Yeah, I actually run A Ravi a lot, and I know a lot of people don't run A Ravi.
Exactly.
But in the way that I think about builds is that sometimes I have a lot of units built, right? But sometimes things with the way pre-bans and picks work, sometimes the draft will shift back to a previous meta state, right? A lot of times when things like Landy and Stenny are not pickable, and someone picks some like Fluri and Krau, right? I think Fluri and Krau is very popular, two
Fluri
picks. That's where APOC really shines, right? Because if you draft high damage threats and then you also have an APOC on your team, the blue Krau almost always has to S3 the APOC, right? She's kind of a more aggressive Riolet, and that's the way that I use her.
Ooh,
so,
I like that. Yeah.
Some people ask me, why don't I run counter set on A Ravi? Well, if I'm using her as a counter, like a more aggressive Riolet, then I need her to do more damage, right? And counter set, unfortunately, will cost you some gear score, right? You won't have that much gear score available because you're sacrificing speed set, right? So if I want her to always have high value on her, like on damage and stuff like that, I need to put her on speed set. Beforehand, people would pick her on like some people used to run her on crit set, right? But I think now that A Ross is not as common anymore, I value immunity on her much more often because I pick her as a standalone unit.
I love that, dude. So offensive Riolet, because a lot of people, yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of people aren't really playing APOC as much, and they are going for that counter, kind of like 1v4 mentality, when instead you just threaten the revive versus units like Blue Krau.
And sometimes, and sometimes you don't even need to go for the revive, right? Like, let's say you do enough damage where you just want to kill someone, you have your S3.
Okay.
Yeah, you have your, like, this is a 2k attack, 350.
Yes, so we did go for some attack subs, and we went for almost capped crit damage, right? Okay. Damn.
Some people say that.
Very high crit damage.
Yeah, and to me, what I used to test out was like how much bulk is enough. This was a comfortable bulk where I tested 24k HP. Would not recommend. I've tested 20k HP and I found that worked out for me a lot. And I tested different defense amounts.
So this is the nice.
If you're picking, if you this is what works for me, and it kind of depends on how you draft with her.
Of course, yeah. That's the theme of today. All right, Kenny. Next up, SSB Cisabalona. Okay, mega bulk, dude. Absolute zero speed. We got the crit and crit damage there. A little tiny bit of effectiveness, and then 3k attack. So we dropped some attack compared to other builds, and in favor of like insane tankiness, right?
Yeah. I think what you have to ask yourself is like how much more benefit do you get from having like that extra 600 attack per drink? I think more often than not, you find yourself valuing the crit damage more often because the S2 does more value.
Okay.
I don't even draft SSB that much anymore because there's a lot of pseudo counters to SSB now. Things like Cerise, right?
Yeah.
Things like kind of control her and, you know, and then she'll feel in a pretty bad spot. But keep in mind, I contest first turn. So I'm not really worried about those units most of the time controlling my SSB. So it's okay.
All right, I like it, man. Have you thought about giving her some speed? I know like some players will give her, instead of like 0 speed, 150 just to make sure, you know, she gets like an S3 off before it's whatever.
Yeah, it depends on how you draft, right? But I draft in a way where I always contest first turn. It's not a problem for me.
Okay, so contesting first turn is the reason. All right. Next up, we got the terror lately, and Kenny, we're gonna take a little bit more time on this unit. I'll show the stats.
Hey, you want to see a funny clip?
Yeah, go ahead and yeah, link in the chat. We'll show chat in YouTube. While he gets that, guys, let's show the stats here. We got a 4.1k. Pretty bulk.
Yeah. So I have a very funny neck on this unit, by the way. I think it's very funny. So I play very aggressive, which is why I run a Warhorn on her. I dropped a lot of damage units, and the Warhorn synergizes more with my other units, which is why it's like so cracked.
Kenny, we're saying funny because it's flat attack?
It's funny because it's flat attack, and I think it's not best in slot on her, unfortunately. But I like to pretend like I saw into the future and flat attack was goated on her. So let's just all pretend that I rolled this not for the speed, but for the flat attack.
Sure.
Agree?
Kenny, yesterday we had a question from, they're like, when would I ever, and then we had the chart, you know, showing what units are favorable and not favorable. You said Carrot is actually not. She still prefers attack percent, or is it vastly so? Is it big time? Like, percent is much better?
No, it's much better unless you have an insanely high rolled neck.
Right, so I think this is a good example, guys. You're not going to get a lot of these, but if your subs are very, very good, you roll that stuff, right? It had attack percent, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so this Carrot, I value the speed. I want her high attack. I want her on, you know, enough speed to push past most players. And then the important thing is that I expect Carrot to live into Frenzy, and I expect her to live in this bulk. So I want her on effectiveness, because if it gets to Frenzy 4, which most of the time it will, and I don't win a game, I can start to debuff things like the 150, like the 150 to 100. You know, 100 to 150 at Fres units, right?
Okay.
And that's why this kind of unit is so valuable.
So we do go for some effectiveness. Okay.
Because if you really think about, if you contest first turn, right? A lot of the times people won't be able to one-shot your Carrot, right? Because things like Blue Kisei are just completely out of the question. So if people end up like deferring to things that are slower that can one-shot her, things like Blue Krau, for example, right? Then you'll get to those later games because you're doing, you know, they can't one-shot you right away, right?
Sure.
So that's the value of having the effectiveness there.
All right, and can you send me a link, right? A clip? Let's go ahead. So that you guys, if you haven't stopped by his channel, one more time, mods, if you ever get a chance, or actually anyone I think can type this, that's his channel, boys. And yeah, let's put a face to the name. Okay, let's check out this clip. So here he is you'll see his face on the bottom right. Imagine he's talking with us right now.
If I win this, I'm actually gonna ult F4.
I think this is the domino. 1v4 Carrot, boys.
Do I stream every day? I do.
So Kenny, in terms of this degeneracy, where do we yeah, I love the clip, by the way, man. Oh yeah, they're asking about your schedule. Kenny, do you want to comment on that real fast?
Yeah, so I have a full-time job, and
Finance.
if any of you know what it's like to be a financial consultant, you know that it's very, very engagement oriented, and your timeline is kind of rough, especially in the early 20s, right? So I work about So when I'm assigned to a different projects, I'm usually assigned to 2 or 3 projects as a senior.
Yeah.
I probably work anywhere from 80 to 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
And
Guys,
I
sorry,
try
Kenny, let
my
me interrupt
best-
real fast. I had to call Kenny's secretary for the past 2 months to try to get him on. So, boys, better hit that follow button because I had to work my ass off to get this legend. I'm kidding, by the way. It was a little bit of we had to wait till work kind of eased up a bit though, right? Sorry, go ahead. You very busy stream schedule?
Yeah, so I try to stream 3 times a week. I guarantee a Friday stream, and I try to stream 1 time over the weekend. If it's something like this, I count it as a stream. So sorry for those of you who are waiting for a weekend stream.
Yeah.
But then the other time is I try to stream once randomly throughout the week if I have time for it. So
Okay.
unfortunately, my schedule is a bit out there, but I do stream like every Friday.
Yeah,
least.
I think everyone would love to see you more, but of course, real life comes first for you. And at least you still... Do you play a lot off stream, would you say, Kenny?
I used to like in the previous seasons, but now I'm just kind of cruising. Like if you look at my like games played, I'm like always hovering in that like top, I'm very close to legend cutoff. I'll push on stream, I'll hit legend, and then you'll
fall
I'll
out of
stop
it.
playing until I can until I can stream again.
Fair
So
enough,
I
man.
don't really play off stream.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Kenny, next up we got the GP, General
This
Purgis.
GP is actually kind of nuts. So this is actually an insane GP. The gear on this GP is kind of cracked.
For 230 speed, yeah, I actually tried to build... I had to get 230 speed point also, and the stat line you have here is very good.
Yeah, so I play very aggressive, right? So I like running Draco play, 30% extra crit damage. And then I value him on 230 speed. If you'll notice, a lot of my units are in that 210, 200 to 220 range. This is where this 230 GP is kind of like kind of sick, right? Like
To make sure he gets the attack up for your units, yeah.
You always get attack buff for your units. So it's like a soft synergy, but also damage, right? Like this can reach, the Stennies and the Landys, and it does a good amount of damage, right? Like that's...
Yeah, we even have a few attack subs to make, he's got a little bit of attack percent here and there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I'd like to, drop the attack for like crit damage or something like that. Or
Really?
more
I thought
HP if
I thought
it.
people like to balance a little bit of attack on their GPs. No?
I think it's okay, but I mean, I
You just
definitely
rather
wouldn't
go
shoot
crit
for it.
damage?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And I think like that this 19, like this is almost 20k HP. With Draco plate, it's enough bulk. So.
Yeah, and actually,
No,
you could be 20k. You're opting for the dual attack. Is that what
yeah,
you rock when you?
Yeah, the dual attack chance is effectively double the chance of dual attacking. So it's not just 2.5%. It's literally double the chance of dual attacking.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no reason to ever run like extra HP percent.
Interesting.
Yeah, this weapon. Yeah, that weapon is another 80 gear score.
30. Oh my god, I thought that was crit damage. That's 35 crit chance.
Yeah, I rolled this on stream. So for those of you that were there, it is what it is. I told you, I'm genetically built different. I was born to play Epic 7.
He was just put on this earth to play Epic 7. Connor, thank you so much for the raid. Connor, we watched your clip earlier, but we're in the middle of a Kenny. Guys, buckle in. Thanks for joining us. We're in a Kenny guest talk, and then we're gonna do some RTA after. But yeah, man, insane GP. Thank you, Connor. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the GP. I do run A-Ross quite a bit, actually. I have a very different A-Ross, actually.
Kenny, you've said that about every unit, and I love it, man. So tell us what's the difference on this.
Yeah,
this unit,
so I think what people have noticed now about A-Ross is a lot of the times you want to save your S2, right? So you don't have immunity. Now, the biggest problem with A-Ross is that a lot of the times you get controlled where you can't actually proc your stuff, right? So you want to have enough ER to effectively prevent that from ever happening. So
crazy.
you can kind of hold out and greed for the Soulburn S2, right? Everyone agrees. I think any agrees in the chat that say that Soulburn S2 is pretty OP. It's pretty good, right? Like, it's a lot of damage, it's a lot of value.
Chat, agree with him or I'm banning people. Go say yes, say agree. All right. Dude, the stats are crazy. So 173 ER while being good bulk and some speed, yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes people ask me, like, why don't I run FRES? Or like, why don't I run resist set, right? So I play this on stream quite a bit. And what people will see when they pick, like, when I pick my A-Ross, right, is like they'll pick Flurry in T-Time. This happened once on stream. And they're like, they ripped the T-Time S3, right? And my A-Ross resisted, right? And the guy was probably thinking, like, wow, that's so unlucky. This guy resisted my immunity proc. Like, I cannot believe this guy's luck.
Yeah.
No wonder he got Season 3 Legend. So what he now keep in mind he has Flurry, right? So he Flurry S3s my A Ross afterwards, and it gets resisted again. And you know that guy was tilted off of the earth. But little does he know, right? That like I was, I've high res with immunity, right? So usually people don't expect that, right?
Sure.
They don't expect that like when you have immunity, you're also on high ER. But this is like one of those like cheese scenarios where it'll catch people off guard. But it also still works, right? So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
kind
I
of
feel like you're not sacrificing too much. I guess, Kenny, what would we say we sacrifice for the ER? Just higher, like 30 more speed is what people will usually run or something, but...
So usually what people run, the average one I think that I see is a little bit higher defense and just like 200 speed. But again, I value my A-Ross to move before a lot of my DPS units, so I want him to be a little higher speed. He has a pretty good chest piece.
So, wait, Kenny, you're saying people run lower speed? I thought I used to see like very fast. No, that's not the thing anymore.
With this kind of Efra's A-Ross that is more popular now, I promoted a lot on my stream, and I think a lot of people shifted to it now.
Efra's A-Ross.
It's just because like if you don't S2 on the first turn, A-Ross gets controlled, which is exactly really bad.
Okay.
So a lot of people just opt to run like lower speed to have this kind of stats. I'm running Rise of Monarch, which is why I have more HP. More defense would be nicer for sure, but I think at this level of speed, I have to lose some stats somewhere, right? And unfortunately, it just comes out of defense. But I think the main carry for this build is if you look at his chest piece and you look at his necklace, I think that's what really carries this kind of build.
The necklace?
It's pretty insane. Yeah, the necklace is pretty strong.
Sheesh.
And then I think the chest piece is like a 78 gear score. Like,
yeah, this is some crazy gear. Kenny, we have a question from the chat, and I hear this a lot. Don't people run 200 effectiveness T times?
They do, but you don't have to pick A-Ross in the T-time, right? There's other units that you can pick. I think usually in the cases where you pick A-Ross are when people slam the FCC, right? And that's where like it can kind of be you can kind of be in a weird spot, right? I think things like GP, like you're picking this A-Ross to kind of deal with things like the GP S1 provoke and the FCC S1 provoke, right?
Okay.
It's not for everything, but it still can sometimes work into T-time. Does that make sense?
And also, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And Kenny, would you like you said you think tank a lot, you talk with a lot of other legend players. How realistic is it that like what would you say how many players actually have a 200 effectiveness T-time? Is it a lot?
I think a lot of people do,
yeah.
But I think a great way to punish that is just contesting first turn. And you see, like, I pick my Model Luluca a lot, I pick my Flurry a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm not really worried about people picking T-time into me.
Okay. Sounds good. So people, that is real, guys. The 200 effectiveness. Okay.
You can skip through Charles. My Lilius is built, but she's not that good. She's on free gear.
Okay, so we're kind of we do have some crit chance for the damage, a little bit crit damage.
Yeah, I used to run Efra's Lilius. I think Efra's Lilius now is a little out of favor, so I just opted for just higher crit chance. If I ever draft her, right, like she has some damage.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we'll take note of that, Kenny, and we'll see. Do we have a cleanser? We'll get to that later, but is there a separate? Do we opt for another cleanser? We just don't run one now.
I actually don't run cleansers at all.
Interesting. Is it because of the speed, threatening speed, and we're just going first anyways?
It's because of the speed. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. A Tywin. Bruiser.
I have a Bruiser A Tywin. I think there are too many answers to. I think effectiveness A Tywin is pretty good now. I don't really draft A Tywin that much anymore. But back in season 3, the problem with A Tywin was that there were too many popular picks that kind of soft countered effectiveness A Tywin, which made him a little less ideal. Which is why people ended up pushing for this, higher damage A Tywin. And I think this is a pretty good high damage A Tywin. I still think he does a lot of damage when I get to use him, but I don't draft him as much as I used to. I don't think he's like falling out of favor, but he's a little bit weaker into stuff like Carrot. I think you just have to find the right spot to use him.
Okay.
I think right now I would recommend effectiveness A Tywin if you had to draft this unit, and if you wanted to rely on a unit and build your team around it. But
Kenny, when you say that, remember we're like you said before, we're kind of just aiming at a general purpose. So if we say effectiveness Tywin, what are we dropping from yours? So we drop the crit damage, and what are we exchanging? How much effectiveness, and then do we get more bulk as well?
So you want to go, you go for more bulk, more speed, and then probably higher effectiveness.
What would you say like a safe, just guesstimate effectiveness would be for that kind of build?
Yeah, so I think you'd want things that are still pretty fast. So I think, in my opinion, if you can get to the 150 effectiveness mark, I think is good because people drop. 150. People don't have as much effectiveness anymore.
Right.
And then you just go for more bulk. Anything over I think 21k is very premium, and then you want higher speed. 220 range, I think.
Primo. Got
220 is I think the baseline. Then anything after that is great. And the reason why 220 is the important number is because you want to be able to if you pick A Tywin on effectiveness build, usually what you do is you pick a stripper, right? Cerise or something like that. So you want him to be on enough speed to outspeed things like a 230 to 240 ML Krau, right? And that's That's like the reasoning behind it. Again, it's just to cover your bases, right?
Sure. And Kenny, I think I know the answer already, but I think this is like the 10th unit, right, chat? We've seen that's 99 crit, and
Yeah,
I'm assuming
so
we make sure we don't overcap.
no, it's just because like the gear just doesn't work out that way. If I had 100% crit, that'd
I
be
didn't know the
great,
answer to that.
right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the times, what happens is if you overcap on crit, you're sacrificing too many other stats, especially if you don't have the gear allocated for it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like, I'll be honest with you, like if I don't proc my crit, like I probably won't lose because usually it's just a draft difference at the end, right? Like,
Okay.
there will be instances where like, yeah, oh, I didn't crit, this sucks, but that's okay because you don't need a 100% win rate to climb an RTA. You just need to win half the time.
Play the numbers, boys. Play the numbers. All right. Kenny, do we actually use this guy, this Spez?
Yeah, I used him twice in RTA when I was climbing. This is a lifesteal Spez that I drafted.
Yeah, look at
Chloe.
This build. You said versus May Chloe's?
Yeah. It was pretty funny. It worked, and that's the end of it. Actually, this gear could probably go on CZ.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I thought I just didn't really have anyone else to put it on, so I was like, whatever.
Okay.
Let's put it on Spez.
Realistically, where do you think Spez falls in the grand scheme of a high-end RTA?
So here's the thing, right? You have your general purpose units that you have, right?
Yeah.
You have your main core units, and then to round out your win rate, you have these niche units that will drive your win rate from a 0% chance to like, ideally 100% chance. But sometimes, going from 0 to even 20% chance will be fine, right? Because winning 20% of the time is better than losing all the time, right?
So in a
And
situation where we have a 0% win rate, Spez comes in and he's our niche pick that'll accelerate that 0 to something possible,
yeah,
right?
to something possible. Because he's like an RNG unit, right?
Okay.
I rely on MLDB, I have to rely on the counterattacks, I have to rely on stuns. It's
All
not
right.
very likely, but if I'm like super dizzy in my draft, or I'm like thinking like 5 steps ahead, and like I don't know what's going on, right? Like,
And that's what we're gonna get to
sometimes
later. I'm excited.
sometimes I can't pick RB, then I'll pick the Spez.
Okay. Yeah, Kenny, I want to see some examples later. Hopefully you remember from the 0%, is that when we get drafted in a corner? Is that what we're saying? I'm trying to
Yeah, it's like a niche
conceptualize.
pick that, yeah, sometimes like I'll be like, wow, I could have used Spez here, so I just put him on some filler gear.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, Doris. She actually getting some playtime?
I don't use this unit actually.
Uh-oh.
She's
My
on
chat
pretty
loves
bad
Doris.
gear.
Yeah.
I guess that helmet's pretty good. I guess she's not on the worst gear, but I don't use her.
Okay. Not is it
on-
because of other Soul Weavers, just not your playstyle? What do you think it is?
I think Doris to me is a little too slow, so it doesn't fit playstyle wise. But I mean, she's a unit, so
She's a unit, boys. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
If I need a random unit to cleanse, right, with Idol's Cheer, then I'll pick Doris. But it's very, very rare that I'll pick a unit like this.
All right, and Kenny, this next gentleman coming up, I have fodder saved because I kind of wanted to try some builds. Do you think it's still worth building Trozet on Sunday, June, whatever it is today, 2021?
I think, yeah. So unfortunately, not.
Oof.
I think the meta has shifted to the point where he's not really usable anymore. Things like LQC, I've preached on stream that LQC is a unit that will bump you up to the next tier if you're pushing an RTA. And because I think me and a bunch of other streamers have pushed LQC so much that most people have her, and it makes T's like Trozet like almost borderline impossible to use.
Thank God, Kenny, I wakened him and I had the fodder ready. I was like, let me see first before we play some RTA with Kenny tomorrow.
Yeah. So
let me not promote him yet. Thank God. Okay.
There are times that you can use him for sure.
Yeah.
But he's just not as good anymore. I think him as a Bastion holder is pretty good because sometimes people pick Cerise, and if you have Bastion, it kind of soft deals with Cerise, right? Because you have that fat barrier to protect your unit now.
Okay, interesting.
So,
and Kenny, let's make a disclaimer together, guys. When Kenny says something like, or if I ask him, is this still worth building? And he says no, remember who we're talking today. Remember, guys, this isn't a sort of new player. One, it's a review, guest talk, etc. But we're talking specifically for the highest levels of RTA, right, Kenny? So if you want to play Trozet, I mean, just be aware of his weaknesses. Kenny's saying LQC is huge, but yeah, so I guess Kenny, did you want to input? Do you think he's just not worth building for anyone?
I think this kind of pivots back to what we said earlier about what you have on your account to deal with certain units. I think he's not the worst to deal with units like, let's say you can't deal with Fire Ravi, right? We said earlier that, units like Cerise and Trozet are really good into Fire Ravi, right? Then that's where this unit can kind of shine. But for me to sit here and recommend you to build like Trozet as a general purpose unit,
Yeah.
it's pretty hard for me to justify because, you know, historically, I think like we've all seen Smilegate likes to roll out a balance patch the week before RTA ends, which shifts the meta.
Mhm.
Right? So you don't want to waste your resources on something that could be completely useless, 1 month down the road. So I can't recommend that. But I mean, if you want to do it and you really like this unit, then go for it, right? It's kind of like, it kind of just depends on your own scenario, and then like it also depends on like what you have in your bot.
Yeah. Okay. But just in general, right? I can speak for you when we say, if we say something like not worth building anymore, it's for for high level RTA in that regard.
I think the way that I phrase my advice is applicable to anyone, so I would say that's not the case. But
Interesting.
I think it depends,
So
right?
just in
I
general,
really, yeah, I
'cause
really watch. I think what I say, and
it's
I think that
let's
that
take a
makes
quick
it more.
segue
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
Kenny, and talk about mentality, because this is interesting. As content creators, what we tell our viewers is, I think that's the safest way to put it, though, no? Because if we disregard high level RTA, if we don't put a sort of scenario, then any unit is viable. No, I don't
Yeah,
think there's
no,
anything that's extremely terrible. Where
every unit is viable. I completely say I like.
so then,
I'm
what's the difference
completely
between what's the kind of? I guess I'm trying to understand your thought process behind, not specifically saying high level RTA, just when you say you craft carefully, what are we saying then instead of that for like
Yeah,
recommending to
so the idea is how often you can use a unit, right? Because you want to, I think, people that play this game really want the bang for their buck. I think to a fault. People want future-proof units and things like that, right? And in that, like, I don't believe there's a thing in this game as a future-proof unit, but I do believe that you can have a unit that can be used in more instances than the next. And if that's the way that I'm gonna frame things, then that's how I'm gonna recommend to build things. So that's all.
Okay, fair enough,
Hopefully
man.
that makes sense. I think, yeah.
No, that does. It's just I'll do two disclaimers, right? I'll usually talk about if it's an RT unit, and then of course when I recommend the units that fit the most categories in the game, like you mentioned, future proof. Just they're good at like a lot of scenarios, right? A lot of different game modes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Kenny, tea time.
Tea time. So this is not my actual tea time build. I had to change it around, but I do run FRES on my tea time. I can't leak this one because. I care a
wait.
little
Sorry,
bit-
was I not supposed to show it?
No.
Oh,
I
the
changed
actual build, right? You're saying this is not the real
Yeah.
build?
This
Okay.
is not the real build.
Yeah, Kenny, let's just skip it
So
then.
no. It's still a pretty good tea time. So you want her on immunity and fast.
Yeah.
And this is the case where I say like I really don't pull for summons, so you notice I don't have max crown, for example. So I think what's interesting, right, is when you think about this, right? Think about how people can counter tea time. A lot of the times it's with CC, right? That's where this like effect like FRES build kind of comes up, right? Where
60
if you can
FRES. Yeah.
So if you have more FRES in this case, right? And this is not the final build, right? I have more FRES on my actual build.
Mhm.
Then you actually are in a spot where you can resist more things that people throw at you. Let's say people run like a 40 effectiveness Flurry, right? They try to provoke your tea time. Then if you have more FRES, you can just resist that. So I think that's like a cool way to catch people off guard. It's a little bit of a cheese, but I think it's one of those like spicy things that people don't really recommend.
All right, love it, man. The little bit of ER cheese, a little spiciness. Okay. Fighter Maya, Kenny. Do we draft her at all anymore?
No, she's on free gear. I don't really use her at all. But I mean, she's
pretty good.
built, I guess.
Yeah.
She's like on
Okay. Realistically,
like a
how often
280.
do you say you pick her? Almost never?
Never. I never pick her.
That's
really.
unfortunate. She was very common like, a season and a half ago, and then she sort of just, no one really picks her anymore.
That's what happens. I think like a lot of the times, the way that people pick just changed drastically. Sometimes units just fall out of favor. Not saying that she's unusable, right? But
Exactly.
it's a little hard to use her.
Okay. All right, guys. Next up, we got this is probably one of the highlights, I think. The reason a lot of his drafts work, or he drafts around, I should say. The Flurry. Oh my god.
Yeah, so this is one of those units that, again, I talk about how I can speed contest different players.
Yeah.
I have the Watcher Fury and other speed imprints in the back. But with the way that things work, right? With the way that speed RNG is, if you have two units that are around that 300 speed threshold, there's a very high chance that you can outspeed one unit. And both of my units, if they outspeed, are very high impact units. Model Luluca can CR boost in S3 and probably one shot a unit, right? Flurry can essentially S3 a different, like S3 unit and lock another unit down.
Mm-hmm.
Very high impact, right? So a lot of the times when I fight cleavers, like I really don't have a problem at all because of the way that I draft, and I always contest the first turn. So the reason behind the crit set here is that when you have a Flurry this fast and you're on JFA, you can proc buffs like crit chance buff and things like that, and you're taking so many turns with 1800 defense of skills with your S1 damage, and then you also have 40% chance to crit every single time. Sometimes you could say like, oh, what if you run hit set instead, right? But if you think about running hit set, which is 20% more effectiveness, let's say I have the 93% effectiveness here, I'm not going to be able to S3 most Ruels, most DNs, and most Soul Weavers, right? So there's actually not that much reason to go for that much effectiveness early on, and you're just better off going for more damage, right? If I ever have to S1, you can expect my S1 to do like 3k damage on the Flurry, and she's gonna take more and more turns, right?
Sheesh,
and that's where the value of that crit set comes in.
Yeah, I think this is undisputed the best chat, undisputed best Flurry. Turn down the music a tiny bit. Hold on, Kenny. They want to. It might have just been that song, but I can turn down a tad. Actually, I can't on this setup. Let's just skip the song. Okay. Yeah, guys, amazing Flurry, Kenny. This is crazy, dude, and I love the JFA max speed. We even got some effectiveness. The bulk is still there. This thing can probably like clutch out matches at the end too, while speed contesting. Yeah, I think it's wow, very nice.
It's one of the it's one of those things where I really preach coverage against most units, right? This is why I can cover like the cleave players and also play really well against tank players, right? It's because I have like a bunch of things built up, and they're all used a little differently, right? So.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna adjust the music.
Yeah, no problem.
Boys, is the music louder than normal? Maybe it's just that one song, because I never change. Y'all have never complained on any other review about the music. Anyways, YouTube will be fine. It's a different song. Okay, or sorry, it's a different playlist. All right, Kenny, we moving on to the Krau. Ready?
Yeah, so the Krau, I just have higher defense.
You do have, yeah, very high defense.
Yeah, so I could go for more HP, but a lot of the times I like to pick Krau into things like Landy. And I value the HP or the defense just to tank the initial S3s and stuff like that.
And you're on immunity too, also for the extra check.
I always run immunity on all my units. There's just no point not to, right? Like a little resist set, 20% more stats, like why not, right? But like I think at this effectiveness, it gives me coverage against more things, right? I can't get a random Cerise S2, for example.
Sure.
That's where like the immunity kind of comes in. So I think something to consider here is like my speed. This is like one of the soft synergies that I think about when I play, and maybe the average player doesn't think about. If you go to like my ML Haste, for example, I don't want you to jump through, but I tuned him so that my ML Haste will never S3 before my Krau S3, right? Because what's going to happen is like, in that circumstance, when you draft blue Krau and ML Haste together, if your ML Haste ever goes before your blue Krau, right, and you take a bunch of damage, it effectively negates all the damage that you just took, right? So I always like make sure that these soft like synergies are like accounted for, which is why like my win rate I think is above the average like legend player.
Okay,
right?
yeah, Kenny, when we get to the haste, I want you to elaborate a bit more on that because I'm having a little bit of trouble conceptualizing it. But we'll when we get to the haste, remind me, okay?
Yeah.
On the speed tuning. Okay. Momo, do we ever use her anymore? Not really.
Momo is not used. Yeah,
Got
she's on free gear. So
Bazaar. We definitely use this man.
Bazaar, yeah, I should change my Bazaar around. I don't think he needs to be on effect ring anymore, but immunity is very, very important. Again, I do have Efrez. I have a very different Bazaar built up.
Yeah,
so
there's some Efrez too.
So all my units have a little bit of Efrez because I think it's funny.
And also, Kenny, would we say that's a sort of meta thing that we're punishing the players that go for zero effectiveness, right? Since that's kind of a trend for a lot of units.
Is that more or less, yeah. I think it's not meta, but it's like a mind game kind of thing.
Yeah, not saying it's gonna become a meta, but it's more like people are opting to go zero effectiveness. So you in turn build your units with some effect resist to sort of throw them off, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So yeah, more speed the better, and then immunity set because you don't want to like take a 50-50 into a unit that can outspeed. So,
got it. All right, looks good. So we might drop the effectiveness ring, but other than that, we like him. Okay.
Yeah.
Rowana. Any 30 Stella, very nice.
I think she's also on free gear, or not free gear, but like pretty bad gear.
Do you still? Yeah. Did she ever get drafted?
Yeah. This is a pretty good chess piece, but
let me see.
I draft her very rarely, but I do draft her in some spots where I do think she can work. I think this is like this is actually like a max roll heroic chest.
And would you say, Kenny, for Rowana, is this stat line, do you like the speed, or is this kind of just whatever you had and you just threw it on?
I used to run HP boots on my Rowana, but I found that the extra speed is a little more beneficial just to have her cycle.
Yeah, I've been feeling mine's been, yeah, I'm on health boots and it just doesn't feel great, so
Yeah.
I might give it a try. Okay.
The extra speed I think is definitely worth a gander for sure.
Okay. LRK.
My Ammo Crow's sick. I actually like this unit a lot.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so one of the great things about Emo Krau is a lot of people think he's not good anymore. But Emo Krau is actually insane still.
Wait, is that the talk? Is that the talk in the legend in the fleet crew? Like LRK is kind of going down? Or?
It's from me testing things out, right? Emo Krau is one of those units that didn't really fall out of the meta, but is weak into a specific unit that's positive, right? And that's just made clear. So if you can draft Emo Krau into units like Stenny, right? Because he does a lot of damage into Stenny, right? 28k HP plus Portrait does a lot of damage into Flurry, or not Flurry, into Stenny, right? So if things like May Chloe is not around and you can just use a unit to fully aggro someone down, that's the benefit of having the Emo Krau. So I don't draft him every game, but in the games where I can draft him, I expect him to do, you know, some pretty fat damage, right?
Sure, I love that. So Kenny, we would say Maid Chloe stopped him from being like an always pick, and now he's more of
yeah. So
now
he's still really good because he
Mhm.
gives coverage against a lot of things, right? The S2 barrier and like extra mitigation AOE like coverage is really threatening, right? And it's still there. But the reason why Emo Krau kind of fell out of meta is because May Chloe essentially negates all the AOE damage because he kind of loses steam after the first S3, right?
Yeah, and she'll just
So
okay. The revive
so
is
that,
the revive and the
like,
heals and
yeah. So it's one of those things where like if you can eliminate a unit and adjust your draft accordingly based off of the pre-bans and what people pick, then that right is where you can have these units shine again, right?
Love it. Okay, I actually wasn't aware of that, guys. With the advent of May Chloe, LRK a little bit picked less often, but Kenny likes this high damage build. Okay.
Yeah.
Fallen CC.
I don't use this unit, so we can just skip her.
Oh, okay. Is there a reason? Is she just other nights made Chloe same thing?
I perma pre-ban.
Ah, that's right. That's right. He did mention that. Okay.
I mean, she has some pretty good gear if you want to look at it, but like.
Yeah, I can scroll through it fast. So it's because we opt to take her out of the equation than running her ourselves.
It's just because I like playing very aggressive, and I just like to take.
You want to take away their knights, like you said at the start. Okay.
Yeah.
Dizzy.
The 20. Yeah, Dizzy, I don't use her, so we can. She's on free gear.
All right, fair enough. That's kind of the case for almost all players now. BM Haste. So let's take a minute here, guys. He kept
wait. Sorry. Could you press manage equipment here?
Oh, jeez. I thought you were gonna say don't show something.
No. Go back to Blood Moon Haste.
Yeah.
I use them for my E13. If you press manage equipment, go to the rings.
Yes.
Press H. Search by HP and defense percent.
Oh, the subs or the main? What's the main stat?
Yeah. The main stat's HP.
Sub defense percent.
Sub is defense percent. There should be a 47% defense ring.
Found it.
And that, yeah. Then
So it's like this.
Here. Yeah, press equip here.
Oh, you want me to change it?
Yeah, just change it.
Okay.
So this is what I meant earlier about the speed tuning, right? My ML Haste is 192 speed. Which will never S3 before the Blue Krau, right? Because my Blue Krau's 203 speed.
Yeah.
So the synergy here is that the ML Haste is going to S3 after the Blue Krau gets the S3 off. So you get a full value S3, right? Because you took all that damage, and then you just heal back up, right?
Right, so we don't want to get the heal before. Yeah. And Kenny, we're saying like, how many scenarios does it happen? Do we draft versus like high? Are we drafting versus like cleave? Is there a lot of scenarios where your crowd's taking so much damage you want to S3 from the first get-go?
Yeah. A lot of times I give up May Chloe. I let people pick May Chloe, I let people pick Carrot, and I let people pick Landy into me.
So he will take a lot of damage.
So he will take a lot of damage, which is why my defense is higher than usual. And that's also why my Blue Krau has more defense than the HP. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So that's like the synergy.
So we don't want to interrupt Krau's turn. Like you never want to feel like, oh, I just healed. I can't heal here because then I want to Krau S3 next turn. So we just make sure the Krau always goes first. And by the way, Kenny, the stats just in general on this Haste is nutty, dude. I think it's very good.
Actually, yeah, it's actually a lot worse than it used to be because it took a lot of his really premium gear.
So. The primo gear. He
used to be like, he used to have like the same stats but like 2k more HP. But I don't draft him anymore.
All right,
and I also run so the reason why I run Potion Vial on my ML Haste is because I usually don't want him to get CC locked, and I don't find value in Idol's Cheer as much as Potion Vial because it stops people from just controlling him completely.
All right, Potion Vial. Okay, just for that chance of removing something very. It's More RNG, but when it comes into play, it could be like game changing, right? More impactful.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we use the CM Ren at all?
No, she's not really used.
Not really used. Okay.
She's
Alencia.
on, yeah, just...
No, she's not geared. Her helmet got stolen.
Yeah, I don't use Alencia.
Quick thoughts though, Kenny, on Alencia, just in the meta.
Alencia, if you can use her as a stripper for stealth units, or maybe into Mei Chloe, and then with defense buff, if you can push through, then I think she's okay. But it's hard to push through into Mei Chloe because there's just so much extra like mitigation. If people ignore your Alencia, a lot of the times you don't proc Mind's Eye ever, and you don't do that much damage, right? Because you don't have Mind's Eye.
Yeah.
You don't get the full value on the S1, S2. So if you're only taking for the S3, I think there's better units to take in terms of that. So a little 50-50 on her. I think it's a little harder to use her now with the current pace of how people are picking. But I mean, if you really wanted to use her, she could probably work.
Okay. All right, and
the last unit here is the Elena. Yeah.
The Elena, that's the last one. All right, let's see. So counter Celestine, that's what we've seen a lot with the ER, of course. And how often would you say you draft this kind of Elena, Kenny?
I draft her probably 1 in 10 games when I don't have a good out into Carrot.
I think for you though, 1 in 10 is still, that's pretty significant, right? That's with how many games you play. That's not like compared to a lot of your other units. That's
yeah.
That's a good number.
Yeah, probably 1 in 10. Yeah,
sure.
It's pretty good actually. She has a lot of value with her high FRES, and the counter Celestine eliminates a lot of damage when sometimes people draft Carrot and Thailand together. This is a really good unit to pick into those because it not only counters 1 unit, but it counters 2 units.
Right, and you said this is versus mostly carrots?
Mostly carrots and sometimes A Taiwans, but I don't pick her in spots where people have high damage. Even though she does have AoE reducing damage passive, it's not good to pick into stuff like RB.
Interesting. So don't pick her into damage. Mostly carrot and A Taiwans.
She has pretty good gear. Like that's why her speed's so high. So if you can fit a unit like this, I would definitely recommend it. But if you can't, then kind of is whatever, right?
Okay. I like it though. Kenny, they were saying I might have skipped some units because of the Haste CP got changed. The Chloe, the Riolet, he's right. We skipped.
Oh yeah. So
Diane.
So it's Diane.
So the Soul Weaver's pretty much. Yeah.
Diane's just built. I don't like her that much. I gave her more defense and
This is something I was gonna ask you later, Kenny. If I have Riolet, Mei Chloe, Diane, who am I giving my best gear to? If I'm just talking about like the most popular in the current meta, what do you think?
So I'm gonna have to. If you don't mind, we'll take a look through your account first before I give you a recommendation.
I love that. Okay,
and then we'll see, right? Because I can't
Beautiful.
I can't just tell you.
I love it. All right.
Off that.
Fair enough.
I personally would say though, in general, you get more mileage out of Mei Chloe than Diane because Diane is very. Diane and Maid are both weak into Landy, but Maid is a little worse or a little better into Landy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Riolet, how's Riolet doing in the scene?
I still use her. Like you see, like my Max Waters origin isn't even on her. I almost never draft Riolet, but she's like tanky enough to kind of work.
Mm-hmm. And when she gets the Fizz skin, Kenny, is that changing at all? You a fan of the looks?
So I love playing. So remember, I have my APOC built, right? And I said my APOC is my more
offensive Riolet. Correct.
Yeah. So I would rather use my APOC over my Riolet because I like playing more aggressive. But I mean, as you guys can tell from my gear, if I wanted to bulk down, I 100% can do it. It's just like reallocating a few Soul Weaver.
You just like playing aggressive. Got it. And then we don't use the JKC, I'm assuming. Mei Chloe next one?
Yeah, I don't use Mei Chloe at all either. I think she's on really bad gear. But I mean, she's on like enough gear to work, right?
Wait,
like,
we don't use Mei Chloe that often, is that what you said?
I almost never pick Mei Chloe. I almost never pick Mei Chloe.
But the stat line, it's not your best, but this is how kind of you like it for what it is?
Yeah, I like all my Soul Weavers on immunity set. I think it's just very nice to have.
The extra
and
check.
Then, yeah.
Alright. Sounds good. Okay, so that's it for the Soul Weavers, guys. And then we talked about the Elena. Kenny, anything else? Actually, I have to use the restroom bad. But we'll actually stop the recording. We'll do an AMA, and then we'll jump into the... I'll jump on my account, and we'll do some RTA talk.
Yeah, this might be a good time to... I think this is actually a better time. If you want to go to my... back to the RTA screen, you could probably walk through the... I have to use the bathroom as well. I've been drinking a lot of coffee.
Dude, I chugged some coffee.
Yeah, we could... We go to the screen. I'll go a little bit. Yeah, we go over my battle history and how I draft.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be a good reflection of
Kenny, do you think this is good info for YouTube to see, or should we keep it on the account review? Let me think real fast. Because the Careless's review is still longer, so we could I could edit this in, but I'll go ahead and cut the thing now. Kenny, go ahead and shout yourself out for the YouTube fans out there. I'll go put it in chat here, but do you have anything to say to them that might not be in Twitch chat right now? They're just watching on the final video.
Oh, for like YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you enjoy like my analysis and stuff like that, usually on my stream I'm a little more memey. But if you want to check me out, I do stream on Twitch at
I got it on the screen. Yep.
twitch.tv/E11ECPRIK. I do plan on having a YouTube channel somewhere down the line. We'll see. But I really appreciate everyone's support. Thank you for having me, Carl.
YouTube, thanks for watching. Twitch guys, this is chat or YouTube. This is why you should stop by our streams. We got more coming, but we'll see if we put that up. This is just the review portion. Y'all got to see Kenny's godlike gear. Kenny, just so they know, thanks for joining us. But don't leave, man. I'm just thanking them so they know. And we'll be right back, guys. YouTube, peace out.